When you first started driving, most likely your parents gave you the instruction to never pick up a hitchhiker. In 1982, the movie The Hitcher served as a cautionary tale of what could happen if you picked up the wrong hitchhiker. We'll take a look back at this intense thriller on the next Back to the Feature.
Let's all go to the lobby to get ourselves a treat.
Young Jim Halsey, played by C. Thomas Howell of The Outsiders fame, is delivering a car from Chicago to San Diego. It's the wee hours of the morning and he's been driving all night and trying to stay awake when he spots a dude hitchhiking in the rain. He pulls over and offers the man a ride, but we've seen the trailer, so we already know that this guy is bad news. When Jim opens the car door, literally the first words out of his mouth are,
"My mother told me never to do this."
Well, what the hell, Jim? The mysterious hitchhiker is played by Rutger Hauer. He introduces himself as John Ryder, and almost instantly you can tell Jim is having second thoughts about picking him up. They see a car on the side of the road up ahead, and as Jim slows down, Ryder grabs his leg and pushes it down on the gas so they speed on by it. After that, Jim is like, "The ride's over, buddy." Ryder opens the door like he's going to get out, but then he's like, "Nah, I'm good." You can see from the warning light on the dash that he didn't get the door closed all the way. We noticed it, and eventually so will Jim. Ryder confesses that the driver of the car they went past had actually picked him up earlier. He then calmly tells Jim how he dismembered that guy and that he was going to do the same to Jim. As Ryder is intimidating him, Jim asks the $64,000 question. "What do you want?" "Well, that's a good question, Jim." Surprisingly, Ryder gives him an honest answer that will set the tone for the rest of the movie. He simply replies,
"I want you to stop me."
While Ryder continues to harass him, he finally notices the light on the dash. He hears Opportunity knocking and shoves Ryder out of the car and speeds off. Later that day, Jim is passed by a family in a station wagon. He waves at the kids riding in the back and everyone is smiling and having a good time. But happy time is over as soon as he sees Ryder sitting in the back with the kids. He pulls up alongside and tries to get them to pull over. Of course, they don't hear him very well, and as Jim is busy yelling at them, he notices a bus headed straight at him. This is what happens when you drive in the wrong lane. And I'm betting his mother told him not to do that too. He gets clipped by the bus and spins out. So the bus pulls over, but Jim takes off, so that's now a hit and run. By the time he catches up to the wagon, it's sitting on the side of the road. Jim goes to get a closer look and doesn't like what he sees. We, the audience, don't see inside the car, but we do see some blood dripping down onto his shoes. And whatever Jim saw caused him to run back to his car and start puking. Jim stops at an abandoned gas station where he finds Ryder waiting for him. He just tosses Jim's car keys back to him and then goes back outside where a pickup truck stops to give him a ride. As Jim is driving down the road, minding his own business, he's suddenly hit from behind. He looks over his shoulder and sees his old friend Ryder driving the pickup. He rams him a few more times and then just veers off the road and takes off into the hills. Jim makes it to another gas station, but it appears to be closed. As he walks back to his car, Ryder comes busting out of the garage in the pickup, knocking over some gas pumps and spilling fuel all over the place. He has Jim dead to rights, but doesn't run him over. Instead, he stops and chucks a match out onto the pavement and drives off. Jim does his best slow motion run back to his car and gets in just before the whole gas station explodes. He drives out of there looking a bit like Christine after killing Buddy Repperton. At a roadside diner, we meet Nash, played by Jennifer Jason Leigh. She's there to open the place up when Jim comes knocking on the door. Against her better judgment, she lets him in to use the phone, and he calls the cops to explain about Ryder, and they tell him to stay put. They'll come to him. He goes to the bathroom to clean up while Nash fixes him some food. They chat a bit as he starts eating, but she has to go back to the freezer for a minute, and while she's gone, he finds a severed finger in his fries, which means Ryder must be nearby. The cops come pulling up just as Jim stumbles outside puking again. He's arrested at gunpoint, and as they search him, they find a switchblade covered in blood. Nash is just left standing there watching as they haul Jim off to jail. Back at the station, he tries to explain everything that has happened. He's photographed, booked, and placed in a cell until some other cops show up tomorrow to question him some more. One of the cops admits to one of the others that he doesn't believe Jim's a killer. Jim wakes up in the morning and it's a new day of fresh hell. His cell is unlocked and strangely quiet in the station. He finds all three cops on duty dead, and there's more on their way. He knows he's going to get blamed for it, so he grabs the gun from a dead cop and runs for the hills. He makes his way to a payphone, and as soon as he steps into the phone booth, 2 cops pull up. He panics and comes out with the gun drawn. He makes one handcuff the other and then forces them back into the car. He forces them to drive around while he comes up with a plan. He gets the police captain on the radio and tries to explain his innocence again. He agrees to turn himself in, but Ryder has other plans. He pulls up right at that moment and shoots both officers, causing them to crash off the road. He thinks about killing himself right there, but can't bring himself to do it. So he starts walking until he ends up at a little diner. He parks himself in the corner booth where he's quickly joined by Ryder. Jim pulls the gun out and points it at him under the table. Ryder isn't scared because he knows something Jim doesn't. The gun is empty. Jim was never smart enough to actually check it. Dumbass. Before Ryder gets up, he leaves a parting gift for Jim. Bullets for the gun. A Greyhound bus pulls up to let passengers off. Jim slips on the bus and goes into the bathroom to load the gun. And the bus leaves with Jim still in the bathroom, and then we see Ryder start to follow them in the truck. It's a small world as Nash is on the bus too. She gets up to go to the bathroom and Jim pushes her in, where again, he tries to explain the whole Ryder situation. He asks if she believes him, and she gives him a very unconvincing yes. It's not long before the bus is pulled over by the police. Jim gives up at gunpoint, and one of the cops is just itching to kill him for killing his friends. Nash sees what's happening and pulls Jim's gun on them, and who knew Nash was such a badass? They take off in the cop car as we see Ryder watching the whole thing from a distance. Nash's plan is to go to the sheriff's office in the next county. More cops are now chasing them, and it's time to buckle up. She's on the radio trying to tell them that they're going to turn themselves in, but the cops aren't listening. They're in a shooting mood now. The cops start shooting at them in the middle of the high-speed chase. They pull alongside Jim on both sides, and he hits the brakes just as they try to shoot him. Instead, they shoot out their own tires, and both cop cars wipe out. It's like some Keystone Cops Dukes of Hazzard police work. Jim and Nash continue down the road in their shot-up police car, when suddenly they're chased by a police helicopter that starts shooting at them. Ryder shows up and starts shooting back at the helicopter. Drop that sucker right out of the sky, taking out 3 cop cars with it. So, thanks, Ryder? It's safe to say that Nash now believes everything Jim was saying. They abandon the car and start walking through the hills, where they eventually find a truck stop where they can crash for the night. Jim decides to go take a shower while Nash pretends to sleep. And once he's out of the room, she reaches for the phone to call her parents to let them know she's okay. After her call, she goes back to sleep and we see that Ryder is in the room. He then lays down next to her and pretends to be Jim. This dude is a full-on ninja. The TV comes on and Jim's spider sense kicks in. He steps out of the bathroom and Nash is gone. He starts searching out in the parking lot filled with tractor trailers when he runs into a couple of cops, and one of them is the captain he spoke to earlier on the radio. They tell him that they need his help, and they walk him over to a jacked up scene. There's Ryder sitting in the cab of a big rig with Nash stretched out between the rig and a trailer, tied by the hands and feet. Now I remember seeing this in the theater and thinking, this is one of the most medieval things I've ever seen in a movie. Jim can't believe the cops aren't doing anything, but they can't because if Ryder's foot comes off the clutch, then Nash is dead. Jim has no choice but to get in the cab and see if he can talk Ryder into letting her go. And you can tell by the look on his face that Ryder has no intention of backing down. He gives Jim an ultimatum. He has a loaded gun and wants Jim to pick it up. If he doesn't, he'll pop the clutch. He wants Jim to put it in his face and pull the trigger. But as much as Jim would love to put a hole in his head, he knows that doing that would kill Nash. He's stuck between the proverbial rock and a hard place. Ryder is disappointed and tells him that he's useless, and he lets go of the clutch. You don't see her get pulled apart, but you can hear it. And even that was brutal for those days. At the police station, Jim is in the clear and Ryder is in custody. They haven't been able to identify him at all, though. They try interrogating him, but he won't answer any questions. He's basically the boogeyman. The next day, Ryder is let out of the police station like Lee Harvey Oswald. Lots of cops escorting him and lots of news people taking his picture. He's loaded into the back of a police bus where he's joined by several armed officers. The captain gives Jim a ride while Ryder is on the bus, humming along and fiddling with his shackles while taking stock of the men surrounding him. Jim tells the captain that they'll never hold him. The captain says that whatever happens to Ryder won't have anything to do with Jim anymore. Challenge accepted. Jim grabs the captain's gun and forces him to pull over. He forces the captain out and he goes after the bus. And so now the captain has to hitchhike. Just as Jim catches up to the bus, he hears gunshots. And sure enough, the back door opens and there's Ryder holding a shotgun. He dives out of the bus and crashes through the windshield, landing next to Jim. He slams on the brakes, sending Ryder flying back out onto the pavement. Ryder picks up his shotgun and starts shooting as Jim tries to start the stalled truck. He finally gets it started and Ryder challenges him to hit him already. He just stands there as Jim throws it into gear and runs him down. Ryder bounces off the front of the truck and goes flying through the air like a rag doll. It looked like it really hurt too. Ryder just lays there in the dirt, but you know he's not dead. Jim gets out of the truck and goes to pick up the shotgun, and he walks over to Ryder, who appears to be unconscious. He points the gun at him, but then just turns and walks away. As he does, Ryder jumps up and tosses his shackles at him. This time, without hesitation, Jim spins around and takes his shot. In fact, he takes 3 shots at Ryder. So yeah, he's dead. The end. Roll credits. So yeah, after seeing this, I never even considered picking up a Hitchhiker. Rutger Hauer made this movie, and I think as an actor he was very underrated. The movie did just okay at the box office and surprisingly caught a lot of flack for its violence. I found that odd because there really wasn't a lot of on-screen violence. There was a sequel in 2003 with C. Thomas Howell returning as Jim Halsey. This time around, the Hitcher was played by Jake Busey. There was also a remake in 2007 with Sean Bean playing John Ryder. Now, I like Sean Bean a lot, but you can't top Rutger Hauer here. To really appreciate his work, go watch him play a terrorist in Nighthawks and then a synthetic human in Blade Runner. If you picked up a hitchhiker, would you rather it be John Ryder who wants you to stop him, or the hitchhiker from Something About Mary who tells you about his idea for a 7-minute abs video? Let me know in the comments below. If you enjoyed this trip down memory lane, please hit the like and subscribe buttons below to help grow this channel. I appreciate you taking time out of your day and hope you will come back for the next Back to the Feature.